She's a worthless and disrespectful bitch.
I will never allow you to marry such a woman.
With those words, my sister's head was drenched in a brown liquid. My sister begged me to come with her because she was anxious, and I followed her to the meeting with her in-laws for my sister's wedding. At the fiancé's family home, unbelievable treatment awaited us. I was verbally abused to the point of shaking with anger alongside my beloved daughter, and my sister, who was supposed to be happy, had coffee spilled all over her head. I can't take it anymore. With the sound of something snapping, I stood up. Just as I was about to grab a person who drenched my sister in coffee,
Don't be mean, okay?
the innocent voice of my 5-year-old daughter changed the atmosphere completely. And then, I nodded to myself, let's end it here.
I am truly sorry.
How many times have I seen my sister's back as she apologized? And how many times did I make her apologize? My name is Jim Taylor, 20 years old. Suddenly, the memories of the past came back to me through a dream I had a long time ago. It was my pathetic past. A hopeless person, always causing trouble for others.
Jim, I want you to be someone who cares for others, so always consider the people around you in your actions.
My mother would often say to me as a child, we were a poor single-parent family. Losing my father early, my mother was often sick and bedridden. My sister Ava, who was 3 years older than me, always wore dirty clothes that didn't match our sizes.
Here comes the poor siblings. How filthy.
Every time we were teased at school, I would cry to my sister, why only us suffering like this? I wanted to retaliate, filled with frustration. She told me in the same way as my mother,
Jim, even if you're hurt, you can't hurt others. Even if you're sad, you can't make others sad.
But
my sister would gently pat my head, trying to console me.
It's okay. When I grow up, I'll work a lot. I'll become wealthy and make you and Mom happy.
But I couldn't keep believing those words forever. Our situation wasn't something that could be changed with one person's effort. Rather, it just got worse, something I painfully learned by the time I reached middle school. Finally, my frustration exploded.
Jim, you fought again, didn't you? I told you to stop.
shut up. They started it.
Where are you going? It's midnight already.
Leave me alone.
I used to skip classes and get into fights on a daily occurrence. I also made a big noise in the middle of the night with friends and rode off on my friends' motorcycles. I did all the mischief I could think of, causing trouble for everyone around me.
I am truly sorry.
Cleaning up my mess was always my sister's role. When I was picked up by the police, she would rush to the station, and whenever complaints came from school or neighbors, she would promptly apologize. I never really understood the hardship my sister went through. So, I could carelessly throw such words at her.
You always come running when called. Are you always free?
Jim, you have no idea.
If you're free, you should get a job. Don't waste your time on me.
Maybe you're right.
Ava chuckled softly and didn't even try to scold me. Later, I realized it wasn't that she couldn't argue back. By then, Ava just didn't have the energy left to argue. Ava collapsed from overwork a few days later.
Jim, I fixed your school uniform. Try not to tear it again, okay?
What are you doing? You were told to rest, weren't you?
But I need to make dinner for Mom. It's also her bath day.
Ava, looking more white than blue, as if she could collapse at any moment, staggered to the kitchen. Even I could tell that this was a crisis. As soon as she returned from the hospital, she started doing housework again.
That's right. I need to make a call. I've caused trouble by collapsing.
A call to where?
The convenience store around the corner. I work there.
Work, you mean?
That was the first time I learned that Ava had a job. It was obvious, even without thinking. Mom was bedridden, and I was still in middle school. Ava, who was in high school, was the only one who could support our family. What did I mean by get a job? She had been doing that all along.
Working, doing housework, taking care of Mom. Then, what about high school?
To my question, Ava responded with a sad smile.
I quit a while ago. But it's okay. I was mostly sleeping during classes anyway.
Are you sure?
At that moment, I felt as if I had been punched in the head. The daily fatigue and, without a doubt, it was my fault. Ava came to pick me up from the police station and school, even if it was in the middle of the night. I was the one stealing the rest time from my exhausted sister. The foolish me doing whatever I wanted without knowing anything.
I'll do it. Give it to me.
I had taken the frying pan from her. Then, I pushed my wide-eyed sister into her bedroom.
Wait, Jim. You don't know how to cook.
I'll do it from now on. Laundry, cleaning, taking care of Mom. All of it.
Jim, thank you.
Pushing Ava along, I was crying my eyes out. She was so happy when she started high school. How hard and sad it must have been for her to decide to quit. The more I thought about it, the more pathetic I felt, and tears came streaming down.
Sorry. From now on, I'm going to stop bothering you.
When I muttered quietly, Ava turned around, smiled, and patted my head like she used to.
I'll teach you cooking tomorrow. For today, can you hand the laundry? And if possible, I'd like you to go shopping too.
I'll do it. I'll go shopping too.
Thank you, Jim.
Her expression was apologetic, yet relieved. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, realizing how much pressure Ava had been carrying alone, and I swore never to forget that pain. I've decided that I'll never, ever act selfishly and stupid again. From now on, I would do whatever I could for my family. Under Ava's guidance, I learned all about household chores, and eventually, taking care of our mother became primarily my responsibility. At the time, I was already a freshman in high school, but I decided to drop out.
I'll start working in April. If I work, it leaves the financial burden a bit.
But are you sure about that?
I've already decided.
Despite my sister's objections, I started working part-time immediately after dropping out of high school. First at a construction site, then at a factory, and cleaning at a hotel. And for the past 2 years, I've been working in the kitchen at a chain restaurant. The cooking skills Ava taught me paid off, and I gained a reputation for being efficient. However, once you've strayed from the path, it's not easy to regain trust. At 20, I was reminded of this fact. Excuse me,
Whoa, what do you want?
I had merely approached to discuss my shift. The female manager exaggeratedly jumped back, immediately putting distance between us.
I'm still not used to him. It's startling.
I get it. He's kind of scary.
He was quite the troublemaker, right? Is it really okay to employ him?
While whispering with the other staff, the manager glared at me cautiously. At all my previous jobs, rumors about me always somehow surfaced. Because of them, I've had trouble with relationships at work and have even been fired. So I'm not hurt by such attitudes anymore. I'm the cause after all. I don't even have the right to be hurt. The past can't be changed, so all I can do is act in a way that earns trust going forward. Manager, I can take on more shifts next week.
Hope that would help. We're short-staffed.
Even as she spoke, I could tell what the manager was really thinking.
Working so much, what does he spend his money on? Must be something sketchy, no doubt. I don't really want to give him more shifts. What if he brings bad company or suddenly stops coming?
Ignoring such thoughts, I continued my work silently. Then, one day, a very eccentric newcomer came along that made everyone lose interest in me.
Well, so he's the ex-bad boy I've heard about, seeing one for the first time.
What?
The manager, who had been spreading rumors about me, was taken aback by the cheerful exclamation
What's going on?
that came from the new part-timer, a college student named Olivia. With her overly polite and airy way of speaking, she seemed out of place in a mere chain restaurant, like something out of a storybook, with an innocent and airy appearance. And she made frequent outrageous statements. Though she had only recently joined, she was already the center of attention.
So, I was being nice and warned her, stay away from Jim, he's trouble. Then Olivia said she was interested in bad boy. Olivia's really an odd one.
She's so naive.
While the manager whispered rumors, Olivia herself seemed oblivious, diligently taking notes on how to clean. I think she's a good person, but why me? You should ask someone else.
No, that's not true. Your skills are amazing, Jim.
Skills, but I just follow the manual.
Such efficient movements. Watching you, I can't help but admire.
Oh. She would often come close and praise me excessively. Being more accustomed to disdain than praise, I felt awkward. Her presence somehow threw me off balance. I'm not the good person you seem to admire, Olivia.
Really?
Things like duty and brotherhood. Some people might have them, but not me. Without caring if I shattered her illusion, I laid out the truth. I was just someone who caused trouble for others. I used to fight daily just to vent my frustrations, and I had unilaterally cut ties with the friends I used to hang out with. Disappointed. Reality is different from movies and dramas. I deliberately pushed her away to create a barrier so she wouldn't come any closer. I couldn't afford to lose my job over some baseless rumor, especially since my mother was hospitalized and Ava and I were struggling with the expenses. Learn the job from someone else. Honestly, it's annoying to have you around.
Yes. Thank you for your guidance.
Her drooping shoulders made me feel a twinge of guilt, but earning money for my family was more important to me. However, a few days later, an incident occurred at work. The cash from the register had vanished overnight.
You were on the late shift last night, Jim. Was it you?
What? The manager accused me in front of all the staff. A murmur spread through the gathered crowd, mixed with confusion and voices saying, "I knew it." Wait, I didn't do anything.
Were you taking extra shifts just to look for a chance to steal?
That's not true.
Is that so? I can't trust you. No matter how much you claim to have reformed, words are just words, aren't they? And you seem to be in need of money. You're the only one with a motive.
The manager's words led my colleagues to nod in agreement. For the past 2 years, I have worked more diligently than anyone, even taking on shifts during busy periods, including the Christmas holiday. I thought I'd been steadily building up my credibility. Was that all just in my head? As harsh gazes converged on me, I felt the world darken and became rooted to the spot. But then, it happened.
Jim is not the culprit.
There was one person who stood up for me. It was Olivia.
Jim is not the kind of person to steal someone else's money. I believe that.
She spoke out with trembling legs and teary eyes, facing the piercing stares that must have made her want to cry instantly.
Do you have any evidence, Olivia?
Evidence is, well,
See, there isn't any, right?
but it wasn't Jim.
Olivia, why are you defending him?
She stubbornly continued to assert my innocence. Eventually, the manager conceded and conducted a thorough investigation, revealing that a staff member who had the day off but was scheduled for the same night shift was the culprit. The manager apologized to me. "Thanks, Olivia," I said awkwardly, expressing my gratitude, and then asked her why she believed in me without any evidence. Olivia just smiled broadly and innocently replied,
A person who's good at cleaning can't be bad. The boss in a movie said so.
"The boss. Olivia, you watch gangster movies."
Yes, I love them.
Could Olivia, with her fluffy and gentle demeanor, really be a fan of such movies? Imagining her seriously watching a movie, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I can't picture it at all.
It's a wonderful world. Jim, would you like to join me sometime?
Join you. Olivia looked at me curiously as I laughed, clutching my stomach. Then she started laughing with me. We both laughed for a while. This day brought us closer in no time. 7 years later, I married Olivia and we live together. We have one daughter, Emma, who is now 5 years old. Today, we are visiting my mother and sister Aves at our old home.
Ava. Hey, look at Ava.
Emma, don't bother your aunt. Weren't you supposed to be well behaved today?
It's okay. I'm done preparing. Come here, Emma.
Ava.
Emma, with a big smile, ran into Ava's open arms. Even before she could speak properly, Emma was very attached to Ava. Emma dreams of being a convenience store manager like Ava.
I want to be like Ava because she's so cool.
Really? That's nice to hear. What do you find cool about me?
Your clothes, and also,
By clothes, Emma means the uniform Ava always wears. Continuing to work at the convenience store, Ava eventually became the manager. Emma often pleads to visit Ava's store. Luckily, my mother has recovered from her illness. She still lies in bed most of the time, but seems to be much more energetic than before. Amidst these happy times at home, a major announcement came. Ava was getting married.
I wonder if he's okay with me not even finishing high school.
But Lucas said, "It's because it's you, Ava. He's a good man."
Yeah.
Ava's fiancé, Lucas, is a banker at a major bank branch managed by his father. His grandfather used to be a banker, and most of his relatives are lawyers, doctors, teachers. He was born and raised in an elite family, but Lucas is a down-to-earth and friendly man despite his elite background. Their meeting happened at the convenience store where Ava is the manager. Lucas, who visited as a customer, fell in love at first sight, and gradually they started to interact. Recently, he proposed, and today, Ava is visiting his parents' house to meet with them.
I'm actually a bit anxious. Our backgrounds are so different. I wonder if his parents will accept me. I shouldn't be doubting this since I've decided to marry him.
Since the engagement, Ava has been mostly happy, but occasionally looks worried. Her concerns stemmed from being a high school dropout and raised in a single-parent family. Worrying that the difference in social status was too great.
I splurged on this dress, but from their perspective, it must look cheap.
Says. Maybe sensing Ava's unease, Emma looked up at her and said,
Ava looks so pretty today, like a princess.
Really, Emma? Do you think so?
Yes.
Emma's innocent smile finally brought a smile to Ava's face, easing her anxieties somewhat. Then, Ava made an unexpected request.
Jim, will you come with me?
What?
Lucas will be waiting there, but going alone feels daunting. Normally, parents would go, but Mom can't. Please, would you?
But what can I do there?
Just having you there would be comforting. Please.
While holding Emmy on her lap, Ava pleaded desperately. She has been forced to be the mainstay of this family since she was a teenager, carrying everything on her own. With a sick mother and a troubled younger brother, she has continued to work even when her own health was poor to pay for her mother's hospitalization. After years of hard work, she is finally trying to find happiness, so how can I, who has caused her so much trouble, not help sister? All right, I'll go with you.
Really?
Ava's face lit up. Then Emma jumped down from her lap and exclaimed,
Emma is going too.
What? Emma?
Going out with Papa and Ava, right? I want to go.
Emma.
She insisted on joining us. Not fully understanding where we were going. We're not going for fun, Emma. We'll call your mom soon, so you should stay at home with her.
No. I want to go with you.
Emma, don't be so stubborn. As I scolded her, Emma's eyes quickly filled with tears. Realizing this was getting out of hand, she soon threw herself into Ava's arms, crying,
Ava, Papa is.
Oh, the dress got stained. Sorry, sis, I'll move her away.
It's okay. Maybe we should all go together, Emma.
Emma looked up, her face messy with tears and snot.
Really?
Yes. If Emma comes, it will make me feel even stronger.
No, we can't. It would be a bother to them. Despite my protests, Ava went to call Lucas. A few minutes later, she returned with a smile, saying,
His parents love children. They said it would be great for Emma to come along.
Yeah,
"Really?" While I felt a bit guilty for imposing on Lucas's family, their generosity made me hope that they would accept Ava as well. Feeling a bit relieved, we got ready, with Olivia bringing a suit for me and a nice outfit for Emma, and set off to Lucas's family home where he was waiting. Children, with their sometimes startlingly mature remarks, can really catch adults off guard. Perhaps children possess a unique intuition that adults lack. Emma's tantrum might have been a response to sensing something about the situation ahead. In hindsight, there were signs of unease. When we arrived, Lucas wasn't there to greet us, and we felt scrutinizing glances with every move until we entered the living room.
Where's Lucas?
Abel asked his parents after the initial greetings. Lucas's mother let out a heavy sigh.
He's not here.
How come?
It doesn't matter if he's not here. You will be leaving soon anyway.
Leaving? What do you mean?
Before Ava could finish, Lucas's mother smiled. It was a very nasty, horrifying laugh.
We invited you here to request that you break up with Lucas.
What?
What did you say? Ava and I exclaimed in unison, shocked. We were supposed to be here for their marriage. What was happening?
Say something, please. They don't seem to understand.
When the conversation turned to him, Lucas's father also spoke up. He crossed his arms, adopting a suddenly stern demeanor.
A high school dropout, presumptuously clinging to my son. It's clear, lack of education really does equate to a lack of shame.
Wait a second.
Lucas entered the room abruptly.
Lucas, where have you been?
I'm sorry, Ava. They wanted to talk privately first, so I was waiting in the back. I thought it was over by now. Dad, what are you saying?
If you heard, then you know. I meant exactly what I said.
That's right, Lucas. You don't need to choose someone from a single-parent family, someone of poor upbringing.
Lucas's parents disparaged Ava together.
They must be after our money, seducing our son like that. Our family has a prestigious lineage. We can't mix it with such worthless blood. Normally, one would withdraw themselves. But what shamelessness.
As you know, my husband is a branch manager at a major bank, and it's not far-fetched to say he might become the head of the main branch. To put it simply, he's of high status.
The deputy head of the main branch has a daughter about your age, Lucas. You understand what this means, right? Don't ruin my chances by getting entangled with some unworthy girl.
Ava is not an unworthy girl.
Lucas squeezed his fists and muttered, his voice shaking. It was a feeble attempt to defend her. Needless to say, it did nothing to stop his parents.
The conversation is over. Lucas, why don't you send them home now?
Look at that dress, so flimsy and cheap-looking.
So no.
At the exchange between Lucas and his parents, Ava, who had been stunned, blushed and looked down. I couldn't hold back any longer. Stop insulting my sister.
I'm sorry, Jim.
I don't want your apology, Lucas. Weren't your parents supportive of this marriage?
I thought so, but
Lucas hesitated, looking down. As my frustration grew at his indecisiveness, a cruel remark hit me.
This is what happens with the uneducated, recklessly having children. Such a pity.
What did you just say?
Pity. I hear you're a high school dropout too. With such parents, what future can that child possibly have? Normally people would show restraint, but here you are, bringing her along thoughtlessly. When parents lack common sense, it's the child who suffers. She really looks like she's from a bad upbringing.
Finally, the barrage of insults reached Emma, who had been sitting quietly all along. Was the permission to bring Emma along not because they liked children, but rather to find more faults and increase the grievances? I just can't tolerate this anymore. Not only my sister, but now even my daughter. Just as I was about to stand up in anger, demanding they stop,
Enough already.
it was Ava who stood up first, with a look I had never seen before.
How dare you speak like that to my dear brother and niece? I don't care how prestigious your family is. To me, you are the shameless ones.
Ava.
Lucas, stay out of this.
Ava, with a fierce expression I had never seen before, confronted them, demanding an apology. But those she confronted quickly turned red with anger.
What a rude woman you are.
You told Lucas to shut up. I will never allow this marriage.
Hey! Before anyone could react, Ava was drenched from head to toe, her new dress stained brown. Lucas's mother had thrown coffee at her. Something inside me snapped. I really can't stand it anymore. I stood up, glaring at the person I was about to confront. However, an innocent voice suddenly spoke up, drawing the attention of everyone present.
I'll just cancel the account.
What?
Mom always says, don't deal with people you can't trust. Mean people are no good. Never deal with people like that.
Emma.
These people are mean, so we're canceling the account.
Right, isn't it? Emma looked up at me with shining eyes, probably repeating something she heard from her mother without fully understanding. I smiled and nodded affirmatively at her. Yes, Emma, let's cancel that account.
Yeah.
Since my daughter insists, we will be canceling our account with your bank.
Jim, what are you saying?
Lucas's parents looked confused, while Lucas began to panic, perhaps understanding the implication.
What nonsense. What's our account to you? Just petty cash, I suppose. Feel free to cancel it.
Mom.
Lucas was too late. With a grin, I said as if I had been waiting for those words. So we'll be withdrawing our deposit of $100 million.
What?
Is it 100 million?
Seeing their astonished faces, I couldn't help but give a wry smile, remembering a time when I probably had a similar reaction. Wait, isn't Olivia's dad the owner of that company? This revelation came after Olivia and I had been dating for a while, gradually considering marriage and sharing more about our families. Olivia bravely started to reveal information about her father, and I was astounded, my jaw nearly dropping.
Yes, my father is the president of Brown Securities.
Olivia disclosed, mentioning a corporation well known even to me. In essence, she was a corporate heiress. She mentioned working at the restaurant was for social experience.
Sorry for hiding it. Do you dislike me now?
No. For me, that was hardly a concern. My more pressing issue was about myself. Being a high school dropout, poor, and supporting a sick mother through part-time jobs. I felt utterly mismatched with Olivia. Regardless of who Olivia's parents are, I could never dislike you.
Jim.
But I want to meet your parents once.
What do you mean?
I want to disclose my background to them first. I knew her parents would likely oppose our relationship. I was prepared to step back. I love Olivia, and I wanted her to be happy with someone who was worthy of her. Later, when I visited Olivia's home, I was greeted by a dry pop sound. What's happened?
Oh, Dad went overboard with the crackers. You're startled, Jim.
Oh, sorry. I believe in expressing feelings tangibly.
If it's about tangible expression, I've prepared a feast, right? Sorry, Jim.
Greeted by a couple who laughed warmly, and Olivia looking embarrassed behind them, I stood frozen, having braced myself for harsh words.
Welcome, Jim, to our home.
I'm happy to meet you. Please make yourself comfortable.
Come in, Jim.
I was welcomed with smiles from all three and a feast that barely fit on the table. Olivia's parents, my future in-laws, were genuinely welcoming me.
You know, I'm very grateful to you, Jim.
After the meal, Olivia's father said this with a gentle smile. Grateful, you say?
Yes, I've heard a lot about you from Olivia, including about your background.
Yes. As Olivia's father's expression turned serious, I straightened up. I wonder if they are against our relationship after all. Just then, he shed a tear. Oh no.
Well, sorry. Just overwhelmed to finally meet you. I've always wanted to.
Why me, and why gratitude?
It's not someone like me. You are a benefactor to our family.
Why? He recounted the troubled past of the Brown family. Olivia's father, constantly engaged in strategic business dealings, faced many deceitful and manipulative people. Struggling against such individuals, he often took out his stress on Olivia and her mother at home.
Feeling remorseful afterwards, I felt I was the worst husband and father. Once, I even told my wife to leave with Olivia. This behavior changed Olivia. Though outwardly cheerful, she became inherently distrustful of people.
Such a thing is. I couldn't believe it. Because Olivia was the only one who had believed in my innocence. Then her father revealed the answer was me.
Right after she started her job, Olivia told me about a senior who was meticulous in cleaning and excellent at cooking. This senior never cheats or cuts corners.
That means.
So, I wanted to believe in that senior, and for the first time in a while, I saw Olivia smile. It had been a long time since I felt so at peace. I realized how painful it was to always be suspicious of others. So, I decided to try trusting people again. It was thanks to you, Jim.
By trying to trust others, the constant tension I felt was eased. I could go home in a peaceful mood, and the instances of snapping at my family decreased. and our family relationship improved significantly.
That's why you, Jim, saved our family. I can't express how happy I am that you're marrying Olivia.
No, not yet.
Huh? I thought you came today for a wedding. I can't think of anyone more suitable for my daughter than you.
Oh. Her father had acknowledged me as a suitable match for Olivia.
Is it different?
No, of course not. I would like to marry your daughter. As I bowed, her father was overjoyed. And then, my welcome party started again at Olivia's parents' house.
However, in today's world, being a high school dropout must be tough.
He said, encouraging me to get a high school diploma first. Afterwards, he advised me to go on to college if I could. He offered to pay for the education, suggesting I could pay him back once I advanced in my career. Taking his advice, I started studying for the high school equivalency test while working, then went to college. During this time, I married Olivia, and we were blessed with a daughter who resembles her. Now, I'm a part of Olivia's family and working in her father's company. To avoid being labeled as just a nepotism hire, I worked hard to build credibility, and now I manage new employee training in the HR department, focusing on developing capable employees to repay the kindness shown to me. Our company has entrusted significant funds to your bank, built on the hard work of many employees, because the president trusted you. In business, we want to deal with trustworthy people, and as my daughter said, we can do business with those we can trust, which refers to you.
Well.
Where had their earlier bravado gone? As I glared sharply, Lucas's parents shrank back. Changing attitudes based on someone's status is proof of unreliability, as my father-in-law taught me. I took Ava and Emma's hands, heading quickly to the exit. My sister, Ava, is important to me. I can't hand her over to people like you in this house. Goodbye.
Jim, Ava, I'm truly sorry.
These final words were directed at Lucas. I can't give my sister to a man who couldn't stand up to his parents and protect her. Even if he desired it, I couldn't consent to their marriage. As I vowed in my heart, I turned back to Ava. Let's go home, Ava.
Yes, let's go, Emma.
Yeah.
And so, the three of us left Lucas's family home. Ava didn't look back at her fiancé even once. That night, I explained to Olivia why Ava returned covered in coffee. I then apologized to her for deciding on my own that the account was closed. I'll cause trouble for your father and everyone at the company. I take all the responsibility.
Look at me, Jim. I'm not angry.
She said, prompting me to hesitantly look up. Olivia was smiling gently.
I would have done the same. I love your sister and want her to be happy. I can't forgive anyone who hurts her.
But
I haven't heard good things about that bank for a while now, so it will be fine. Besides, I trust you, Jim.
Her words affirmed my decision more than anything else. And as Olivia predicted, the bank's reputation had been declining, leading the president to close the account and move the company's funds to another bank. The branch manager, held responsible for losing a deposit of $100 million, was demoted and transferred to a remote branch. The branch manager and his wife had to move to a new location and gave up their luxury house they were so proud of without a second thought. Regarding the marriage, I heard that my sister decided to break up with Lucas herself.
He's kind because he probably couldn't abandon his parents. It just wasn't meant to be.
Ava, sorry. Despite her words, a lonely expression crossed her face. I looked at the man in front of me, as if to say, "What will you do now? I never wanted to see you again. You couldn't protect my sister, and now you show your face. What are you thinking, Lucas?"
I came here to.
Jim.
Since she wouldn't blame him, I did. If he fled now, I'd ensure he never approached my sister again. With that stern look, I awaited Lucas's response. He looked down briefly, then lifted his head, his eyes filled with determination.
I will sever ties with my parents.
Lucas.
What really matters to me is you, Ava.
He recalled the moment he fell in love with her. He was attracted to Ava's work efficiency and constantly smiling, even when she was busy.
It's a worthless job.
He was struck by how radiant Ava looked while she was working, realizing that he and his parents had been wrong, feeling as though he'd been hit in the head. Kneeling down, he took Ava's hand and spoke.
If I hadn't met you, I'd still be under my parents' control. Talking back to them was a first. I'll cut ties with them and leave the bank. I want to start over with my own strength. Can we start as lovers again, and someday, let me propose again?
Lucas. Are you sure?
Tears fell as Ava's face crumpled with emotion. Then she silently nodded. Lucas stood up and deeply bowed to me.
I'll cherish her this time. Even if you can't trust me now, I'll work hard to earn it.
But to say I trust you is not something to be taken lightly. Trusting someone is a heavy decision. All I could say was, I trust my sis, the sister who decided to trust you.
Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
As my sister and Lucas exchanged smiles, I could see the look of happiness on my sister's face, and I was convinced my judgment was correct. Eventually, they resumed their relationship smoothly. And just the other day, I was approached by my sister for advice. She asked if Emma could be the flower girl at her wedding. What would have become of me if my wife hadn't believed in my innocence when I was accused of stealing the cash register money? I would probably have become unable to trust anyone and returned to a troubled life. Trusting someone isn't easy, but that's what gives it such strength. Sometimes, it has the power to change one's own or someone else's life. I hope my beloved daughter can navigate this wisely. I won't say to trust everyone or to be suspicious of everyone first. When you decide to trust someone, I want you to trust them fully, and to love and be loved by those you truly believe in. That's all I wish for as her father.
Leaving work early on such short notice. That's just not acceptable in the professional world, man. It's because of this irresponsibility that you're still unmarried at 30. He said with a half laugh. If you're gonna leave, you might as well quit the job. Hearing those words, I felt something click inside me. If the company is going to deny me even such important things, then I don't mind quitting at all. Understood. I replied just that and quickly left the office. My name is Michael Johnson, a 30-year-old bachelor. My classmates are in the middle of a marriage boom, and I'm the only single one left among my friends. It's not that I don't want to get married, but if you ask me if I want to do it right now, I'd say not really. I guess it'd be nice to get married someday, I think quite leisurely. Honestly, I haven't had a girlfriend for 5 years, and people around me say I should be more anxious. But I think things will work out as they will. However, whenever I attend gatherings with my classmates, the topic of my marriage inevitably comes up. When I say marriage talk, I'm not doing anything about it. So it's just the others getting excited about what I should or shouldn't do. And when the topic comes up, they always say, "Michael, you're living with your mom. That's probably why you can't get a girlfriend, right?" That's right. At 30, I'm living with my mother. In my early 20s, I lived alone for a while, and I indeed had a girlfriend back then. But when I was 24, my father passed away suddenly, and I thought my mother would be lonely. Initially, I visited frequently, but it became a hassle, so I moved back to my family home. Since then, I haven't had any particular reason to move out, so I've just been living there. Regardless of the reason, I can somewhat understand that a 32-year-old man still living with his parents is less likely to be chosen as a marriage partner. But I'm not in a hurry, and I don't intend to change my situation.
You used to be the most popular among us. How are you still single?
If you go on like this, you'll end up single and die alone.
Kids are adorable, you know?
It's nice that my friends are happily married, but being constantly rushed about marriage is honestly tiring. Yay, I'll think about it. I reply without really meaning it, just to get through the moment. If our life stages have changed so much that we can't connect, there's the option of ending the friendship. But aside from marriage talk, they're still the fun guys they always were. That's been my only source of worry. But recently, I've had another worry.
That's crazy. You're over 30 and still living with your mother.
Even at my workplace, there's a person who keeps saying that. He's my boss, Morrison. He was transferred from the headquarters in a nearby town. He's 2 years older than me, a married man. I recently saw him looking happy about the birth of his second child. It's natural for him to feel happy about marriage, and I think that's a great thing. But since he found out I'm single and living with my mother, he's started making fun of me every time he sees me.
Living with mommy at your age won't get you any girls. The peak age for men is early 30s, so you better hurry. Women will run away from a guy living with his mom at this age.
I can forgive my friends because I can feel their concern for me. But with Morrison, it feels like he just wants to mock me. So honestly, it's been incredibly unpleasant every day. Please don't say things like that. I respond vaguely since he's my boss, but it's stressful to deal with this repeatedly. Before Morrison arrived, there was nobody who said such things. Is it really that strange not to be married? I've never complained about such things at home, not even during my school days, but I just let it slip out, wanting someone to listen. My mother seemed surprised by my unusual behavior. There was a brief pause before she spoke.
There's nothing weird about it. Whether you choose to live life alone or with someone, there's nothing odd about it if it's your choice.
I sort of knew she would say that. But maybe it was a bit underhanded of me to complain to her, knowing she'd understand. I haven't decided to live alone or anything. I just don't feel like getting married or looking for a partner right now. I think it'd be nice if I felt that way someday. Is that too naive? Mom put down the teacup and chopsticks she was holding and responded,
There's nothing wrong with being naive. Whatever you feel, when you meet someone who you think is the one, it will naturally happen. Whether it's naive or not, it doesn't really matter.
I remember Mom saying that she and Dad fell in love at first sight and got married. I would have already been born when they were my age. But it's precisely because these words come from my mom that I somehow trust them. When that time comes, will I also feel like getting married right away? Later, Mom said, laughing, I'll keep my legs strong, so no matter how old I am when grandkids come, I'll be ready. I hope to give her grandchildren before she becomes an old grandma, all wrinkly. Thinking this way definitely feels positive. It doesn't erase all my doubts about marriage, but I feel much more optimistic than before. Well, at work, I still face the usual unkind words.
Since you're single and girlfriendless, you're okay with overtime, right? I've got my cute wife and kids waiting, so the rest of the work is all yours.
Right at finishing time, Morrison dumped his work on me and left in a hurry. No, I've got plans to eat with friends tonight. I thought to myself, but couldn't say it out loud. He's my boss, and leaving for family versus leaving to hang out with friends certainly gives off different impressions. Feeling the unfairness, I finished Morrison's work and managed to join my friends for drinks 2 hours late. And just as I finished my first beer, I noticed a missed call from Mom on my phone and called her back. She rarely calls me.
Michael, oh, is it your dinner with friends day? Sorry.
She tried to end the call quickly, perhaps hearing the distinctive noise of the bar. No, it's fine. What's up? She sounded a bit apologetic as she asked, could you pick up some sports drinks on your way home? Any time is fine. Enjoy your time with your friends. Mom isn't particularly fond of sports drinks. And since the convenience store isn't that far, asking me to get them could only mean she's not feeling well. All right, got it. After hanging up, I finished my second beer and explained the situation to my friends. Well, parents aren't young forever. Better to take care of things before it's too late. Don't worry about us. Going home, they said, so I decided to leave. They may talk tough, but they are kind-hearted guys. I left money on the table, bought some drinks and chicken soup at the convenience store, and went home. Sure enough, Mom was lying on the couch, looking a bit pale. Here's your drink. Do you have a fever? Are you okay? As expected, Mom felt bad about me coming home early. She even suggested, why don't you go back out? But I declined, of course. No fever, but my head's been spinning since this afternoon. Lying down has helped a lot, though. Thanks for coming back. I'm really grateful, she said, drinking and lying down again. With the recent high temperatures, it might be heat stroke. You're not young anymore. Don't push yourself. Can't you take tomorrow off?
It's nothing serious. I'll be fine. I promise to play hide and seek with the kids tomorrow.
She said with a smile. Yes, my mom works part-time as a childcare worker. She used to be a full-time worker for decades. Even though she's part-time now, her love for children is something I, as her son, can strongly feel. In that sense, I do hope she can play with her grandkids while she's still active. Thinking about this, I fell asleep. The next day, it was the hottest day of the year, and the sun felt scorching right from the morning. I got to work, endured Morrison's usual teasing, and continued working. And then, around 2 p.m., I was called to the reception because there was a phone call for me. If it was someone from work, they would have called my work cell phone. Calling me to the company phone meant it was something else entirely, and I had no idea who it could be. When I picked up the phone, I was shocked to hear who it was.
This is Nurse Harris from the General Hospital.
A call from a nurse is never a good sign. My heart started racing as I listened. Apparently, my mom had been rushed to the hospital with severe heat stroke, and she was unconscious. I quickly returned to my office to inform my boss and leave early. But almost all the higher-ups were out, and the only one there was Morrison. I didn't have time to hesitate, so I told him, "My mom's been rushed to the hospital with heat stroke. I need to leave early, please." I knew I was leaving work in a bind, but with my mom in critical condition, I thought there was no way they'd refuse. But Morrison just half laughed and said, "Leaving work early on such short notice? That's just not acceptable in the professional world, man. It's because of this irresponsibility that you're still unmarried at 30. It wasn't a laughing matter, and anyone would leave early if a close family member was in critical condition. I couldn't believe he was bringing marriage into it again. I just got a call from the hospital. I'll make up for the inconvenience later." I pleaded.
Come on, it's just heat stroke, right? That's not gonna kill anyone. I wish you wouldn't bring your love for mommy into work.
I was at a loss for words. I wasn't a mama's boy. Anyone would rush to the hospital if their mother was critically ill. Sorry, I don't have time for this. Seeing I was getting nowhere with him, I attempted to just leave, but Morrison half laughed and said,
"If you're gonna leave, you might as well quit the job."
Hearing those words, something inside me snapped. If the company was going to deny me even such important things, then I don't mind quitting at all. Understood. I replied just that and quickly left the office. I didn't look back to see what Morrison's reaction was. When I arrived at the hospital the nurse had told me about, my mom's condition had stabilized and she was resting in a regular room. She was connected to a large 4, looking very frail. When I identified myself as her son, the nurse and doctor briefly explained her condition to me. On the way back from dropping off a kid at their house, they found no one home. The child didn't have a key and couldn't get in, so my mom decided to wait with the child in front of the house. The bus was supposed to come back after dropping off other kids, but it got delayed in traffic, and my mom and the child ended up sitting outside for over an hour. The child was fine, having used an ice pack from their lunchbox and drinking water, but my mom collapsed just as the bus returned. The daycare staff came to visit and apologize, and later the child and their parent also came. They said my mom would be fine, so I tried to handle everything calmly and sat next to her bed once the visitors had left. Looking at my mom lying in the bed, I realized how much she had aged, though she was always so energetic. The wrinkles around her eyes, which weren't there a few years ago, made my heart ache. I stayed until visiting hours ended at 6 p.m., but she didn't wake up. The doctor said not to worry, but I was still quite concerned. I hoped she would wake up tomorrow. Thinking this, I got home and was blankly staring at the sofa when the doorbell rang. For a moment, I wondered if I was hearing things out of worry for my mom. But the intercom was lit, so I responded, yes. To my surprise, the screen showed an unexpected visitor. Morrison. I knew he could find my address through the company, but I had no idea why he would come. Was he here to taunt me, even at a time like this? Had my agreement to quitting been taken seriously? Reluctantly, I opened the door to find Morrison standing there with a woman holding a baby and a little girl, about kindergarten age. While Morrison looked somewhat embarrassed, the woman and girl bowed deeply, prompting me to bow in return. I hadn't been told anything, but they were probably Morrison's family. I wondered why Morrison would bring his family to my house. While I was increasingly puzzled, I invited them in anyway. I only have coffee. Thinking I should offer something, I said that, but his wife quickly responded, "No, please, we just came to apologize. Don't worry about it." So, we all sat on the sofa. I had no idea what they were going to say, but the words that came out of Mrs. Morrison's mouth were totally unexpected.
Thank you so much for helping our daughter today.
What? I was surprised and let out such a sound, but as I pieced together the events of the day, I began to understand. This young girl, probably Morrison's daughter, was the child who had waited with my mom for her parents to return.
My husband was supposed to be home early this afternoon for our younger daughter's checkup, but he forgot, and Mrs. Johnson stayed with our daughter because she couldn't get inside the house. She gave all her cooling gel packs and drinks, which she always carries for preventing heat stroke, to our daughter, insisting she was fine. And to think it led to this. I'm so sorry,
she said, visibly shaking, with her daughter close to tears. Morrison also looked uncomfortable, so feeling unable to bear the atmosphere, I forced a smile and said, "No, it turned out okay in the end, so please don't worry about it. Thank you very much for coming to my home." Though I was told she was okay, my mom still hadn't woken up. I couldn't be completely at ease, but I didn't want to keep burdening another family with guilt. As they were leaving, Morrison spoke to me.
I'm sorry for how I spoke earlier. Your mother risked herself to protect my daughter, and I, not understanding a son's feelings more than you who are unmarried, was the worst as both a father and a person. I hope you'll come back to work once your mom recovers.
I had never seen Morrison in such a humble state. Was he scolded harshly by his wife? Or did he realize the gravity of the situation as a father himself? I wasn't sure, but his words somehow eased my tense heart. Yes, thank you. Despite my previous dislike for him, I surprisingly found myself responding that way. Perhaps it was seeing a more human side of a boss I only knew from work. Somehow, I felt like things would work out better from now on. The next day, my mom finally woke up. She had slept for over 15 hours, apparently exhausted, but the 4 fluids had worked, and she was much better. So, I returned to work 3 days later. Morrison hasn't made any snide remarks since then. In fact, he's been quite timid around me. It's clear he values his family a lot. Seeing that, I've started to feel more of a desire to have my own children. I'm planning to go to a group date set up by a colleague for the first time. Hopefully, in the near future, I'll be able to show my mom her grandchildren. I just need to make sure they're careful about heat stroke and let them have all the fun they want.
Poor folks, leave now.
Today, I'm here attending my sister's marriage meeting with her fiancé's parents. It was supposed to be a celebratory mood, but suddenly, the fiancé's mother blurted out to leave. Everyone present was shocked by the sudden outburst. For a moment, I thought it was a joke, but it seems she was serious. I hesitated but was about to leave, though being verbally abused and then running away with my tail between my legs is not in my nature. So I found myself blurting out this response. Then am firing your husband, okay?
What?
After that, the fiancé's mother ended up regretting her words. My name is Gene Simmons. I'm turning 43 this year. I have a younger sister named Irene, who is 9 years younger than me. We lost our parents early. So, ever since my sister was in middle school until she became an adult, I worked hard to fill in as her parent. Our parents passed away when my sister was 11 and I was 18. It was so sudden that at the time, there was hardly any time to think. There were talks of us being taken in by relatives, but I just couldn't bear to let my sister suffer, so I gave up on going to college and decided to get a job instead. I thought if I got a job, my sister and I could keep living together in the childhood house. Even though I only had a high school diploma when I got employed, and we weren't exactly well off, my sister still seemed happy and smiled a lot. When my sister started high school, I took on an additional part-time job to afford her tuition. I was desperate to make sure she wouldn't have to give up on further education because of financial reasons. But with me working hard, I managed to send her to college safely. Thanks to her studying hard, she managed to get a scholarship that didn't require interest, so we managed. Now, I'm already 43 years old. I've got a wonderful wife, and next in line is my sister getting married. She has been living with her fiancé, Eddie Murphy, for a while, and he apparently proposed to her recently.
Hey, Jean, can you come to my marriage meeting with Eddie's parents in place of Mom and Dad?
Requested by my sister for attending her marriage meeting, I am now on my way to the designated restaurant. It was a private dining restaurant located in the city. Due to work, I'm used to places like this, but today is different. With it being my sister's marriage meeting, I am the most nervous I've ever been. Even though I've raised my sister as a parent would, honestly, I don't even know how to face this. Feeling this tension and conflict, I entered the restaurant. In the room I was guided to by the staff, my sister Irene, her fiancé Eddie, and her soon-to-be mother-in-law Eleanor were already there. Apparently, her soon-to-be father-in-law Howard, who is supposed to be busy with work, will join us later. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting.
Really now? How long do you think we've been waiting?
Whoa, Mom. What are you starting off with? We haven't been waiting that long.
As soon as I entered the room, I was taken aback by Eleanor's harsh words. Indeed, it was bad that I kept them waiting, but I arrived 5 minutes earlier than the agreed time. Yet, she took a very aggressive attitude right off the bat, which made me brace myself. This person might be quite troublesome. My bad feeling about this was soon to prove right.
To think he's marrying a woman 6 years older. There were surely younger girls available.
Cut it out. Today is for the marriage meeting.
Consider having kids, though. Wouldn't that be tough?
Despite my sister and I being right there, Eleanor mentioned such things. Looking at my sister, she seemed embarrassed and looked down. Well, nowadays, choosing not to have children is also an option.
I will never allow that. Eddie is our only son. We need an heir.
Hearing the word heir, I recalled what I'd heard about the Murphy family. From what my sister told me, Eddie is a teacher and Howard is a regular employee. And Eleanor has been a homemaker for many years, and it's not like they have a family tree or anything. I wondered about the need for an heir, but I guess some people still think that way.
Irene is 34 years old this year, right?
Yes, I just turned 34 recently.
Certainly, the skin elasticity is different from someone in their 20s. What happened with the girl you dated before?
Why are we talking about that now? I told you, it's over with my ex-girlfriend.
I've only been at this restaurant for about 20 minutes, but it seems Eleanor is not too pleased about this marriage. Sure, some might prefer marrying someone younger. However, they both consented to this marriage meeting, making Eleanor's comments overly selfish. I wanted to retort, but for my sister's sake, I held back. If I spoke out rashly and she decided not to approve the marriage, I could never face my sister again.
I could have introduced you to a younger girl.
Mom, please, enough.
Eleanor dominated the conversation, saying whatever she wanted. I wish she would consider how it feels to be on the receiving end. Just before my anger peaked, I was gripping my fist tightly under the table. I clenched it so hard in my fury that my nails dug into my palm, starting to redden. At that moment, Eleanor asked an even more offensive question.
By the way, was it Jean? What kind of work do you do?
Well, that's...
Is it that you can't say? Are you not a full-time employee?
No, I'm not a full-time employee. At that moment, Eleanor covered her mouth in surprise. I hesitated to state my real job, not wanting to say it here, and somehow my vague answer was misunderstood by Eleanor.
At your age, being a part-timer or a temp is unbelievable. My husband is working respectable jobs.
No, I do work properly.
That's not what you call working. In this day and age, not being a full-time employee. You didn't just finish high school, did you?
I've been raising my sister as a parent since high school, so yes, I'm a high school graduate. Eleanor began holding her head in disbelief. The one getting married is my sister, so why does my job matter? But to Eleanor, it seems important. By the way, after graduating college, Irene became a teacher. She is a wonderful teacher adored by her students, but Eleanor doesn't seem to like either of us. And then, she finally said something outrageous.
Poor people, leave.
Excuse me, what do you mean by that?
Just what it sounds like. I've decided that you don't fit into our family lineage.
At the sudden insult, everyone except Eleanor was stunned.
What are you saying, Mom?
Exactly. Why would you say something like that?
Even my sister couldn't help but retort. My sister takes pride in being raised by me as a parental figure, and she's always grateful and appreciative. A good kid. It seemed that my sister was furious about me being looked down upon, glaring fiercely at Eleanor.
See, That's just like a poor person to get all worked up.
Well, of course I'm worked up. My brother has raised me well.
Save the sob story. Just go home already.
Despite my sister's fierce rebuttals, Eleanor seemed indifferent and was trying to kick us out. That was the last straw for me. I was contemplating leaving the scene, but being berated thoroughly and then fleeing with my tail between my legs isn't in my nature. Without thinking, I found myself saying, "Then I'm firing your husband, okay?"
What? What are you talking about?
It seemed Eleanor didn't understand my words and looked puzzled.
What do you mean? Explain yourself quickly.
I mentioned I'm not a full-time employee because I'm actually a president of a company.
What, huh? A president? Did I hear that wrong?
I'm Gene Simmons, president of the company where your husband Howard works. As I reintroduced myself, I pulled a business card from my breast pocket and handed it to her. Eleanor's hand trembled slightly as she took the card, staring at it as if to bore a hole through it. Having previously called my work mere temp or part-time, she hadn't expected me to be a president. She looked like she got hit by a pellet gun.
A president? That's just not possible.
Why is that not possible?
Because you said you worked right out of high school to raise your sister.
Just because I did that doesn't mean I couldn't become a president, right? Yes, I had studied hard. I gave up my dreams to raise my sister properly. But as she grew up, I started to chase my dreams again. Eventually, I established my own company, which has grown so large it's considered a major corporation now. Many companies approach me wanting to do business, and we hardly ever run deficits. Eleanor, who had been looking down on me, was at a loss on how to interact now that she realized I was the president of her husband's company.
Sorry about earlier. Seems I misunderstood. Please forgive me.
Eleanor finally apologized, but her attitude clearly wasn't that of someone who was truly sorry. Seeing her laughing carelessly, I realized I didn't want my sister marrying into this kind of place. Sorry, Irene, but I can't really support this marriage. It was about 30 minutes into the marriage meeting when I muttered this. The door to the private room opened at that moment. It seemed Howard, who had been delayed for work, had just arrived. Noticing the tense atmosphere, he cautiously entered the room.
What's going on? Is it because I was late?
No, there was a little disagreement with Eleanor.
A disagreement? Wait, aren't you Gene? What are you doing here?
I knew that my sister's fiancé's father was an employee, but it seems Howard didn't know that I was her brother. He looked at me with a surprised expression. Then, as Howard spoke, it finally dawned on Eleanor who I was, and she started to sweat profusely on her forehead.
Hey, is this person really the president? Say it's a lie.
Gene is our president. I hope you haven't said anything disrespectful.
Howard, sensing the heavy atmosphere, raised his voice at Eleanor.
I didn't say anything. It's not my fault. They were the ones who refused to approve the marriage.
Refused? What do you mean, Gene? What happened?
Eleanor said that poor people should leave. I then recounted everything that had happened. Howard listened calmly at first, but his expression grew more severe as the conversation progressed. Anyone would look stern if they found out their wife had made such outrageous remarks to the president of the company they work for.
Eleanor, what have you done?
It's your fault for not telling me from the start that he was the president.
Enough. Why can't you admit your own fault?
I would think the same if I were in Howard's position. Seeing Eleanor still refusing to admit her fault, I could guess Howard had been through a lot with her before. Perhaps this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Thinking about it made me feel sorry for Howard. Anyway, if Irene married into the Murphy family, she would likely face harassment from Eleanor. I just can't bring myself to accept marriage, knowing my sister, whom I've cared for and nurtured all these years, is enduring days of harassment. Irene watched the situation with concern. What should I do? At that moment, Howard, looking resolute, said,
I will divorce Eleanor. Please allow Eddie and Irene's marriage.
This was unexpected. I never thought I'd hear such words from Howard. I knew Howard's work ethic as someone who excelled in bringing people together more than pursuing personal gain. I thought he would somehow calm Eleanor down, but it seems that was not the case.
What do you mean by divorce? What are you suddenly saying?
A joke. Do you know how much I've endured?
Endured? That's an exaggeration. You're not really going to divorce, right?
To Eleanor's question, Howard didn't respond and just stared down at the table in front of him. Clearly, Eleanor had caused various troubles before, and Howard had been suffering each time. In the end, he wished for his son's happiness, even if it meant cutting off Eleanor. For Eleanor, being divorced now would be a serious issue. I had heard she had been a homemaker for decades, and seeing her always dressed in branded clothes suggested she likely had spending habits. If divorced, she would struggle even to maintain her lifestyle, and it didn't seem like she had any intention to work.
Jean, how about this? Eleanor will no longer be involved, so please allow the marriage.
Well, if that's the case, I do want my sister to be happy.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, if it weren't for Eleanor, I would gladly let my sister marry into their family. So, Howard's proposal isn't a bad one for me. After all, the only person who would be troubled by a divorce here is Eleanor, and she herself is the cause of it. Even if I agreed to the marriage in exchange for a divorce, no one around would complain.
Wait, why are you deciding things on your own?
I've been thinking about divorce for a while now. I've reached my limit. Here's the divorce papers.
Howard said as he pulled them from the inner pocket of his suit jacket. Apparently, he had been feeling this way for some time, and seeing the completed divorce papers, it seems he wasn't far from finalizing it.
How am I supposed to live if you divorce me?
That's not my problem. Figure it out yourself. Just go home for today.
In a daze, Eleanor was led out of a private room by Howard. After a while, Howard returned to the room.
I apologize for the disturbance. Shall we continue our conversation?
Yes, let's toast to their marriage as a celebration. Although there was a slight awkwardness for a moment, the four of us enjoyed our meal. As we were leaving, my sister stopped me and said,
I was really happy when you clearly said you couldn't approve the marriage earlier.
Really? I was wondering if I was being too forward.
No, I love that about you. Please continue to be the thoughtful brother you are.
With those words, Irene and Eddie left. After that, the marriage preparations progressed quickly, and soon it was the wedding day. When I arrived at the venue, Eleanor was nowhere to be seen there. Curious, I asked Howard about it. "Excuse me, have you divorced Eleanor already by any chance?"
Yes, we divorced shortly after that. She was invited, but she insisted on not coming.
You managed to get her to agree to the divorce.
I pointed out her misuse of the household finances. I told her to pay it back immediately or choose divorce, and she chose divorce.
It seems Eleanor was hit where it hurt and had no choice but to agree to the divorce. The wedding went off without a hitch, and the two were happily married. They might face many challenges ahead, but I sincerely hope they will be happy. I bless them with such wishes in my heart. About firing Howard, of course, I had no such intention. I had heard he was a competent employee, and I only said that to scare Eleanor. But if Howard had been a bad person, firing him might have been an option. Later, I would learn about Eleanor's situation after the divorce. I imagine it's been tough, but how are things now?
I'm fine. Eleanor, on the other hand, seems to be having a hard time.
What do you mean by tough?
She went back to her parents' home, but apparently, she doesn't get along well with them.
Eleanor had always done as she pleased, even when she was living at her parents', becoming mostly estranged after she got married. Eleanor went back to her parents' house after the divorce, but she wasn't welcomed warmly. She refuses to work, causing trouble for her parents. Eventually, she agreed to help around the house and was allowed to stay, but only under the condition that she must move out within a year, which caused her to throw a fit. That sounds tough for her parents.
I do feel a bit guilty about it, but what is she planning to do next?
That's something only Eleanor can figure out. 6 months later, I heard that Eleanor started a part-time job while living at her parents' house. However, her overbearing attitude didn't change, and she was fired within a month. A year has passed, and my sister Irene and Eddie have moved to the area where my wife and I live. I thought they chose to be near us at their will. But it turned out they just found a good property nearby. Since they moved close to us, we seem to see each other more often. Recently, we had a barbecue in our yard, and next, we're planning a home party. It seems my wife and Irene have hit it off, going out together once a week. That's why we decided to have a home party. Eddie and I were told we just have to show up, so I'm looking forward to enjoying the meal they'll prepare. I eat my wife's cooking every day, but it's been years since I've had my sister's cooking. Back in the day, she used to make delicious meals for me when I came home from work. Chicken soup, macaroni and cheese, stews, and omelets. She made a variety of dishes, and I always look forward to coming home. Thinking back on those days, I'm eagerly awaiting the day of the house party. When I first met Eleanor during the marriage meeting, I wondered how things would turn out, but I'm glad it all worked out in the end. It ended badly for Eleanor, but that was the result of her own actions. I've vowed to become even kinder to people, to protect my own happiness in the future.
High school graduates like you are a disgrace to our family. Leave now.
My sister's mill suddenly tried to have me leave at my sister's wedding. I was stunned by her words and stopped moving. My sister is a doctor who is working at the hospital where my mill is employed. However, my sister's marriage and my education level really have nothing to do with each other. Besides, that information is entirely incorrect. I was about to stand up right then and loudly object to her. But at that moment, someone stepped forward in front of my sister's mill. It was the bride, the main character of today's event, my sister.
Wait, you don't know what my brother's job, do you?
Mill probably didn't expect my sister to argue with her. Then, my sister's FIL, who is the director of the hospital, rushed over to Mill stunned. His face flushed with anger and embarrassment. He scolded them while dripping with sweat.
What are you saying? Don't you know? He actually is.
My name is Michael Johnson. I'm 34 years old and working as a freelancer. I am very busy with my work, so I am working not only in Japan, but also overseas when I receive requests to do so. My parents passed away 4 years ago, but I have an older sister, Emily, who is a doctor and a year older than me. My sister, Emily, is my only family. I heard from her just recently. Emily, it's been a while, what's up? Is something wrong?
Well, I'm getting married soon.
What? That's awesome. Congratulations. She was single until she turned 35, and I thought she was never going to get married. It's great news that she found happiness. I'm really happy for her.
I was waiting until you got your girlfriend before I got married, but I don't want to keep him waiting any longer.
What are you talking about? If you waited for me to get my girlfriend, you might never get married. Emily laughed and added in a gentle voice.
Don't say that. Find someone nice and let me know.
Okay, I will, eventually. I learned from my sister's story that she would marry Andrew Johnson, the son of the heir to the hospital where she is working, and that he is a doctor. My sister, who is working as a pediatrician at the hospital, met him as a colleague working at the same hospital, and they have been together for a long time now.
Andrew's sister is the same grade and same high school as you. Do you remember her?
Well, what a coincidence. I wonder if we were in the same class. I was surprised when Emily revealed an unexpected fact.
She said you might remember her. Her name is Luna.
What? Luna? Is she Luna Johnson? I was surprised, and my sister asked curiously,
Is something wrong?
No, nothing. I am looking forward to seeing Luna again. As I hung up the phone, a bitter memory of my high school days came back to my mind. The reason her name surprised me so much is that there's a backstory. Actually, I had a period in high school where I suffered from numbness in my hands and feet. After a while, my condition would improve, but any physical activity or playing instruments in music class would leave me unable to stand. My condition worsened to the point where I couldn't attend school regularly. Most of my friends were concerned, but there were exceptions. The most cruel person among them was Luna. He was in the same class with me. Luna was the center of the class and wanted everything to go her way. She blamed me for breaking the class's perfect attendance record and constantly complained. No matter how much I explained my genuine health issues, she labeled them as fake excuses. My symptoms gradually worsened, making school attendance almost impossible. When I went to school on days I was feeling slightly better, Luna would notice me and say, "Oh, you're not skipping class today, are you? You must have been playing video games at home all day, huh? You'll never get into any college." I didn't hate my high school, but I didn't like seeing Luna. Just the thought of the person I hated so much becoming a relative of mine made me feel uncomfortable. But now, Luna is a mature adult in her mid-30s. I hoped her attitude might have changed. Eventually, my illness progressed, and I had to take a break from school. I started experiencing frequent numbness and paralysis in my limbs. At the hospital, I was diagnosed with a disease called Moyamoya disease. This disease causes blood vessels in the brain to become narrow, resulting in a lack of blood flow to the brain. It's a disease with an unknown cause. It often appears in teenagers and can progress if left untreated, so surgical treatment is sometimes recommended. However, the surgery required connecting external and internal cranial blood vessels, carrying significant risks of complications. As a high school student, I was faced with the decision of whether to opt for internal medical treatment to control my blood pressure or undergo surgical surgery. At first, I intended to have the surgery, but the more I learned about it, I lost the courage to go through with it. There's no definitive cure for Moyamoya disease, so even with medication to lower blood pressure and prevent onset, there's an increased risk of stroke and the burden on Moyamoya vessels trying to compensate for reduced cerebral blood. Therefore, surgery was the usual option, but there was a risk of stroke during anesthesia. It typically takes 1 to 3 months post-surgery for adequate blood flow to resume in the brain, requiring careful monitoring. After listening to the explanation, I was completely terrified of the surgery. That's when my sister introduced me to Dr. Smith, who is known as a genius in brain surgery. Meeting him changed my life. Dr. Smith explained everything thoroughly, showing me successful recovery cases, and I finally decided to proceed. Trusting him, I underwent the surgery. As a result, my surgery was a great success, and I was finally able to return to my healthy condition at the age of 18. Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. When I thanked him, Dr. Smith smiled kindly at me.
Now you can pursue your dreams without this illness holding you back.
Thanks to Dr. Smith's words, I am where I am today. A few days after my sister told me about her wedding, she called me again. She wanted me to attend a pre-wedding family meeting. While I'm happy about my sister's wedding, the thought of having to meet Luna again doesn't thrill me. But for my sister's sake, I've decided to participate in it. I was the only family for my sister, as we had no parents. On the day of the meeting, I headed for a renowned hotel located downtown in New York. Today's attendees from the groom's side are Mil, Andrew, and his sister Luna. The groom's father, a hospital director, couldn't make it due to sudden work. From the bride's side, it's just my sister and me. My sister and I arrived at the hotel early and were nervously waiting for the others to arrive. Sis, have you met his mother and sister before?
Yes, his mom is working at the same hospital as me. That's why we're co-workers and work so hard.
My sister answered with a calm smile.
I've heard that his sister, Luna, is working various part-time jobs. I'm looking forward to meeting her for the first time.
While we were chatting, the groom-to-be, Andrew, walked into the room.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
It's all right. We just got here too.
Andrew has great posture and a sharp look, so I was relieved to see him as a perfect match for my calm sister. Nice to meet you. I'm Emily's younger brother, Michael. I've been looking forward to meeting you.
I've heard a lot about you from Emily. It's nice to finally meet you.
We quickly found common ground, as I enjoy cycling too, and the conversation picked up from there. I was relieved to get along well. Then the door opened again, and the mill and so Luna entered the room. The mill is a working doctor, so she moves fast.
So you're Michael. Nice to meet you. I've heard that you were in the same grade as Luna.
I figured whatever Luna told her about me probably wasn't too flattering, so I just let it slide.
Michael, long time no see. How have you been feeling lately?
It's been a while. I'm all better now. Surprisingly, Luna didn't make any snide comments like she used to in high school. She became mature and talked to me in a cheerful mood, and I felt relieved that she seemed all right. The food at the renowned hotel was all delicious, and we had wine and good conversation. My sister and Andrew seemed like a well-matched couple, both calm and composed, having been together for a long time. After the meal, my sister and Andrew left the table because the hotel garden was beautiful and they wanted to see it. As soon as they were gone, Luna's attitude changed dramatically.
You're still just lazing around at home, aren't you, Michael?
No, actually, I've been working. I replied with surprise when Luna suddenly asked me the question in a spiky tone of voice. But Luna didn't seem satisfied and continued to scrutinize me from head to toe.
I wonder, I heard you were absent a lot in high school and barely graduated thanks to some pity. And then, you didn't even go to college, did you?
It seems that a person's character doesn't change much over the years. The bright mood I had earlier vanished completely. I felt I needed to clear the misunderstanding. I didn't go to college right after high school because I was ill. Now I'm healthy and working.
But the work you're doing is probably just like playing around, right? You always had a habit of skipping school and goofing off since high school.
I was totally annoyed with Luna, who was sarcastic towards me. I was hoping my sister's mill would come to my rescue, but she just looked at me coldly and added insult to injury.
Everyone in my family has a college degree. Emily, who became a doctor, is very welcome, but you may not fit in with our family.
She then sniffed at me in a mocking manner. So, you're saying I'm not suitable to be part of your family?
That's right. Because you didn't go to college, you're just a high school graduate. It's embarrassing to have someone like that in our family.
She simply nodded and looked sharply at me.
And as Luna says, I don't want anything to do with a lazy playboy like you, even after the wedding.
I've never been lazy. I tried to correct her, but the mill wouldn't listen, and Luna just grinned at my troubled face.
People who slack off always say that. Emily became a respectable doctor, but just hearing that you're a high school graduate tells us all we need to know about you.
Aren't you being harsh in that way? I protested, but she remained unyielding. In fact, she went even further.
That's why you obviously won't be attending the wedding. We can't have a high school graduate in our family.
It seemed the mill judged people solely based on their education. Everyone has their own circumstances, and a person's worth isn't determined solely by their educational background. But it seems the mill doesn't understand this, and she labels me as a failure without any discussion. I'd like to object to that, but before I could respond, my sister and Andrew returned, and I closed my mouth. I didn't want to cause a scene on my sister's special day.
Michael, what's wrong? You look pale.
True. I wonder if we pushed him too hard at the meetup. Sorry about that.
Their kindness made me not want to worry them further. I changed my mood and replied with a smile. No, not at all. The meal was so good, and I just drank too much wine. I'm really enjoying today." The Mill and Luna were quietly smiling, apparently wanting to hide their true colors in front of my sister and Enru, but the coldness in their eyes when they looked at me remained. The meetup ended somehow, but I couldn't shake off the gloom even after returning home. The thought of having to deal with my sister's disdainful Mill and Luna's family weighed heavily on me, despite recovering from my illness and pursuing my dreams. It felt like I was burdened with new troubles. Nevertheless, I was committed to supporting my sister's happiness. I'm glad that Enru, who will be my brother-in-law, is a good person at least. I knew Enru's father, who didn't attend the meetup, to be gentle and kind. Enru must be like his father. So, not everything about this marriage was negative. Trying to stay positive, I brushed aside my foreboding farts. Time flew, and my sister's wedding day came. Despite what the Mill had said, I attended. I determined to not let her or Luna's words bother me on this important day for my sister. I put on my suit. The wedding took place at a grand hotel, chosen through discussion between my sister and her fiancé, Enru. It was a splendid wedding, not only gorgeous to look at, but also full of thoughtfulness for the guests. I was happy as the brother of the bride that so many hospital colleagues were there, and the mood was grand and celebratory. Enru looked dashing in his tuxedo, and my sister was breathtakingly beautiful in her wedding dress. My sister, who usually wears modest clothes, was shining brightly today. Seeing her so happy filled me with joy beyond my own. The ceremony smoothly transitioned into the reception. At first, the reception had a stiff mood, probably due to the large number of hospital staff attending. But soon the entertainment began, and the guests were in a pleasant mood. My sister and Enru, sitting at the main table, smiled warmly at the lively atmosphere. Then laughter from the Mill and Luna. Apparently, they got drunk on alcohol, which they were not used to drinking, and they were in a completely good mood with blushing red faces. It was rare to see a groom's mother getting drunk at the reception. Despite our past issues, I was concerned for her. A few minutes later, my concerns came true. She staggered over to the wedding MC, grabbed the microphone from him, and suddenly started to talk. Luna, her face flushed red from alcohol, came running after her mother, standing next to her mother and grinning.
Thank you all for gathering today for Andrew's wedding. I'm thrilled to have such educated and esteemed guests celebrating with us.
She began confidently despite her intoxication. But soon after, the unexpected words came out.
However, there's someone here who doesn't fit in with the rest of us. It's the bride's brother, Michael. He was a lazy high schooler who frequently skipped classes and didn't even go to college.
The whole room was buzzing, and all eyes turned to me. I turned blushing so red with embarrassment that my face almost caught fire. Looking around at the buzzing room, the Mill exhaled deeply with a satisfied look on her face. Then, pointing at me and laughing loudly, she declared,
High school graduates like you are a disgrace to our family. Leave now.
I felt so embarrassed and out of place by the Mill's sudden demand to leave my sister's wedding. It was incredibly rude to try to exclude me based on my education, especially since the information she had was wrong. I thought about standing up and loudly objecting right there, but I didn't want to ruin my sister's special day. To avoid further commotion, I realized the only option might be for me to leave. As I reluctantly stood to exit, someone stepped forward to confront the mill. It was the bride, my sister.
Wait a minute, you don't know what my brother's job, do you?
The mill appeared taken aback, not expecting my sister to interject. Meanwhile, Luna raised her voice in disbelief.
I don't even need to ask. I can tell. You're probably unemployed or a temp worker, right? A notorious slacker, and just a high school grad. You're only fit for the lowest of jobs.
While Luna laughed mockingly, my sister's face clouded with dismay. Then another person hurried over. It was my sister's Phil, the hospital director. His face flushed with anger and embarrassment. He scolded them while dripping with sweat.
What are you two saying? Do you realize what you've done?
Overreacting much. You must be embarrassed too, having a high school graduate in the family.
The mill was giggling and mocking me along with Luna. Hearing that response, the FIL's face turned even redder as he earnestly tried to explain.
No, Michael is a freelance surgeon. He's a skilled neurosurgeon, and hospitals all over the world are calling on him for help.
The mill stares at him with her mouth hanging open with surprise.
He's scheduled to perform a challenging surgery at our hospital soon, on my invitation. If he refuses it now, what will happen to our patients?
But Luna said he was just a high school graduate.
The mill stuttered, while Luna turned pale and looked at me with shock. However, the FIL's revelation was the truth. I didn't go directly to college from high school due to my illness. Thanks to Dr. Smith's surgery, I regained my health without any lingering effects and got my life back on track. Motivated by my own struggles with illness, I aspired to become a doctor to help others in similar situations. After years of dedicated effort, though a few years behind my peers, I managed to get into a prestigious medical school. I studied hard and passed the National Medical Licensing Exam. After obtaining my medical license, I had been under the supervision of Dr. Smith to practice and develop my skills, and now I was recognized as an outstanding neurologist. At the hospital where my sister works, I've been eagerly requested by the FIL, who is also the hospital director, to handle several challenging surgeries. As the mill and Luna fell silent, the FIL approached me.
Dr. Michael, I deeply apologize for my wife and daughter's disrespect. Please forgive us.
The FIL was desperately apologizing to me, but behind him, the mill and Luna stood in stunned silence. Noticing their inaction, the FIL beckoned them sternly.
What are you waiting for? Apologize to him.
Scolded harshly by the FIL, the two of them slowly approached me. They apologized reluctantly, but their expressions remained resentful, biting their lips in frustration and glaring at me. Please stop this, Director.
You forgive us?
He asked, and his face is lighting up with hope. But the situation wasn't that simple. No. Could I have some time to think about it? We are working at the same hospital, right? The thought of meeting these people makes it difficult for me to suppress my feelings of reluctance. As a doctor, I preferred to keep my work and personal life separate. However, the mere sight of the mill and Luna brought back unpleasant memories. Neurosurgery requires immense concentration, and even a slight tremor in my fingers could lead to grave consequences. Any distraction could endanger the lives of my patients, which is paramount importance. As much as I regretted it for the FIL, you had done nothing wrong. I couldn't continue with the surgery under these circumstances. I conveyed this, but to my surprise, the FIL's face brightened up unexpectedly.
That's fine. I'm planning to divorce my wife soon.
What? What are you saying?
The Mill's eyes widened, turning pale as she confronted the FIL. The alcohol's effects seemingly vanished.
This is too sudden. I haven't heard anything about this. Why would you say you're divorcing me?
Do you think I'm unaware of everything?
The FIL calmly pushed her away, contrasting her agitation.
While I've been busy managing the hospital, you've been quite out of line.
What are you talking about? I've been supporting you as the wife of the director.
She retorted desperately, but the FIL calmly revealed a shocking truth.
So, you've been using your director's wife title to exert power over others for years, huh?
I can't believe it.
The Mill, who had been so forceful earlier, now seemed lost for words, opening and closing her mouth as she searched for something to say. But the FIL continued his relentless critique. According to him, she targeted employees she disliked, overburdening them with unreasonable workloads. This led to those targeted staff members either falling ill from the stress or being forced to resign, contributing to significant understaffing issues at the hospital.
I admit I went too far with my supervision. I apologize, but that doesn't mean we should divorce.
I'm aware of your actions outside the hospital too. Recognize this.
He produced a photo of her with young men. He revealed her regular visits to host Kluba, extravagant outings, and buying them apartments as mistresses.
I've had enough of your reckless behavior.
Wait, it's not what you think. I didn't know about such places until Luna introduced me.
Luna's eyes widen, and her voice rises at her mother's unexpected betrayal.
Wait, Mom, are you abandoning me?
Well, you were the one who introduced me to that host club.
As the two bickered loudly, the FIL looked down on them calmly and declared,
I've had enough of you too, Luna.
Why me? I never went to those clubs.
You never work, just taking pocket money from Mom and wandering around aimlessly. I've warned you for years, but I've reached my limit. I'm cutting ties with both of you.
Hearing this, they collapsed in tears. The guests at the venue held their breath, listening to the family's exchange. It seemed clear who was at fault. From various corners of the room, murmurs could be heard. Mother and daughter were causing trouble for the director of the hospital. And I wish that family would just leave.
Why is everyone looking at us like that?
I did nothing wrong.
They tearfully begged the FIL for forgiveness. Feeling the discomfort of the judgmental gazes around them, they contorted their faces awkwardly and stumbled out of the reception hall. As their cries faded away, a sense of relief finally washed over the venue.
Michael, I'm so sorry I didn't realize you were being treated that way.
We're truly sorry for my mother and Luna causing you distress.
My sister and her husband, Enru, looked worried and comforted me. It seemed like my sister and I, along with her husband, would continue to have a good relationship. I'm really sorry for causing trouble at your wedding. I just want you both to be happy, I said with a smile. They both smiled back kindly. Not long after, I heard that the FIL and Mill divorced within a month. The FIL had been preparing for the divorce for a while and quickly ousted the Mill from the hospital and the house. She claimed her share of the property, but he, on the contrary, demanded compensation for her affairs. He even demanded reimbursement for the money she squandered on her affair partner, completely overpowering her. Luna, unemployed and having lost her home, desperately showed up at her family home and the hospital, trying to get living expenses from her father. Eventually, she attempted to break into the family home at night and was reported to the police. She was disowned by her furious father, and forbidden to even go near her parents' house in the future. After trying to find employment at another hospital, the mill faced challenges due to the circulating rumors about her causing staff resignations. Consequently, no hospital was willing to hire her. She's currently working part-time, seemingly alongside her daughter. They're living in an old, run-down apartment, scraping by each day to make ends meet. Meanwhile, I continue my work as a doctor. Currently, I'm employed at the FIL's hospital, working alongside my sister to help people suffering from illnesses. Recently, I've hit it off with one of my sister's colleagues, and we've become close enough to go out for meals together. Enjoying these happy moments, I'm dedicated to working at the hospital for my patients today as well.
Trying to get away with such a stupid lie. How long are you going to stay in that student mindset?
I was helping a beautiful girl and ended up missing the company's ceremony. On this day, when I was called by the president to explain the situation, he unilaterally assumed it was a lie and mocked me. Sure, I think it's like something out of a comics, but couldn't he at least confirm the facts?
We don't need trash who would choose a girl over the company. You're fired.
No matter how many times I explained, he wouldn't believe me, and in the end, I was even fired. My career as a working adult ended on my first day at the office. I was overcome with despair when the HR manager burst into the room. My name is Carl Newman. I'm a guy who just graduated from college not long ago. College life was, well, I guess it was fun, but it felt like just the bare minimum. I only had a few friends from college, and I wasn't involved in any clubs or activities. I've never had a girlfriend in my life, just watching those sparkling students from the sidelines. I'm convinced I'm just a shadowy existence. Why am I such a gloomy person? One day, while riding the train lost in thought, I pondered, I think I was a pretty cheerful kid back in elementary school. During break time, I used to run around the schoolyard with my friends, and after school, we'd gather at each other's houses to play games and have fun. We'd get excited about sports festivals and other events, and I think I was relatively cheerful back then. In middle school, it felt like the time spent with friends gradually decreased. I was still obsessed with games like I was in elementary school, but I started to drift apart from classmates who were beginning to be interested in fashion, music, and other things. I was even contrary to popular trends. Still, there were friends from elementary school who moved on to the same middle school. I had a few gaming friends. It feels like my circle of friends started to shrink around this time. In high school, my circle of friends narrowed even further. Is it because everyone got busy with school homework? As my circle of friends shrank, I spent more time immersed in games, which only made my circle even smaller. I was caught in such a negative spiral during this time. Eventually, even talking to people felt like a chore. I had a part-time job, but spending money on branded goods or attending concerts of trendy artists felt ridiculous to me. Basically, I had no interest in anything other than games. When I entered college, my loneliness intensified even more. We couldn't match our game time, and I was getting more alone. I did meet some people in group activities like seminars and lectures, but they were few and far between. I quietly spent 4 years in the shadows of those who led brilliant campus lives. Thinking about it like this, it makes sense. I didn't try to join my classmates' circles because I was too engrossed in gaming. I didn't try to keep up with conversations. As a result, my friendship disappeared and my dark character was formed. I mean, it's karma. Do good things and good things happen. Do bad things and bad things happen. So, if you do nothing, it's natural that nothing comes back to you. I didn't get a social circle because I didn't try to get one. I see, that's a well-crafted idiom. As I listened to the clattering sound of the train, I felt both interest in that idiom and exasperation towards myself at the same time. Nothing has changed, and Carl Newman has already turned 22. As I embark on my career as a working adult, I wonder if I can change my gloomy personality. For a moment, I felt excited at the prospect. The only redeeming aspect of my life, so to speak, is that I received a job offer from Smith Corporation. Smith Corporation is a small electronics manufacturer. I encountered this company's products when I was in high school and have admired them ever since for their quality and design. Sure, when I got the job offer from Smith Corporation, I was genuinely jumping with joy, not an exaggeration. Today is the company's ceremony for Smith Corporation. With a fresh start as a working adult, I'm determined to throw away my past gloomy and timid self. I'll be reborn. With that resolve in mind, I left home this morning. The venue is a hall in the city, but since Smith Corporation isn't a big-shot company, it doesn't seem like a very large place. I had been preparing diligently since last night, but I ended up rushing out the door and will likely arrive just in time. I'm not going to be late, so I guess it's okay. I thought so, but I started to get scared because I couldn't see anyone in a suit at all. Maybe I'm going to the wrong place, or maybe I got the date wrong. Those anxieties crossed my mind. When I get off the train, I'll have to walk to the hall. The station is more crowded than I expected, and it's starting to look doubtful if I'll make it on time. Being late for the company's ceremony would be beyond disrespectful. I searched for the shortest route on my phone's map app and hurried along. Is this really the right way? I couldn't help muttering. It was a winding back street that veered far off from the main road. It felt oddly quiet, with the hustle and bustle of the city feeling distant. It was such a weird road. What if I'm late? As I made my way anxiously to the hall, I heard a cry from somewhere.
Stop!
It was a woman. She didn't seem as mature as an adult, but wasn't exactly a child either. She's probably around my age. What's going on? Her voice was so intense that I stopped in shock.
Cut it out!
You brat. Behave yourself.
The voices were coming from the next street over. This could be serious. I cautiously peeked around the corner, my back against the wall.
No, let go.
It was clearly a case. A masked man was pulling a woman. Her had visible bruises on her arms, and her expensive-looking clothes were partially damaged. Wow, she's stunning. Well, calling her a beauty would be more accurate. I was momentarily captivated, but hearing her scream snapped me back to reality.
Stop it!
I panicked and hid, but in the meantime, the beautiful woman was being dragged into the building. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like I had just run a full marathon. What should I do? Should I call the cops? I asked myself inwardly, but I quickly realized it would be pointless. Even if I called now, I doubted the cops would arrive in time to help her. She'd likely suffer before help arrived. It boiled down to either summoning the courage to help her or pretending not to notice and running away. Those were the only two options that came to mind. It's impossible. I can't do anything. That's right. I'd be useless if I intervened. I'll run away first and then call the cops. With that decision made, I took a step forward.
Let me go.
Hey, don't you dare run.
I froze in place. I ain't gonna let you run. Of course, those weren't words directed at me, but they stuck in my head and wouldn't go away. So you're not gonna run, huh? Muttering to myself, I remembered my determination to cast away my pathetic self. All right, let's do this. Rashly, I leaped in front of the man and the beautiful woman. Stop it. I charged toward the man as he shouted. Perhaps because it was so sudden, he couldn't dodge in time. He went flying gracefully, head first into a nearby trash bin. Let's get out of here. Without waiting for a response, I grabbed the girl's hand and started running toward the station. Thinking we should hide, I led her into the station while still holding her hand. I'm relieved. It seems like he's not following us. Considering the shady actions of that man, he probably avoided drawing attention to himself. For now, at least, we can feel safe.
Thank you so much. You really saved me. Thank you.
She caught her breath as she ran and repeatedly offered her thanks. Tears welled up in her eyes, and I could easily imagine she must have been terrified. Oh, sorry about holding your hand. Realizing that I had been holding her hand since we started running, I quickly let go. I've never held hands with a woman before. Though it was unintentional, I felt a slight blush creeping onto my face. If you'd like, I can walk you home. He might come after us.
I'm really sorry.
She kept apologizing as she asked for directions to the nearest station, and after 2 transfers, we arrived. It seemed like she didn't quite understand how to use the train. With her upscale attire, I wondered if she might be some sort of rich girl. After getting her address, we followed the route guidance on her smartphone and walked for about 10 minutes from the station. Arriving at the destination, it was an incredibly huge mansion. Tommy living in a small rundown apartment. It looked like a royal castle.
Dad.
At the gate, there was a burly man with a beard. As soon as she saw him, the girl ran towards him.
Oh, Lola, I was worried. Glad you're safe.
So, her name is Lola. She was crying and jumping into her father's arms.
That's right, Dad. This person saved me when I was about to be taken away.
After happily reuniting for a while, Lola pointed at me. The father looked at me and said, I see.
My daughter owes you a lot. I'd like to express my gratitude. How about tea together?
No, I haven't done much. Suddenly, I remembered the company's ceremony. My body shivered, feeling a chill down my spine. The watch already showed the time when the ceremony had started. I have an appointment to attend. Well then, excuse me. Expecting it to get hot soon, I took off my suit jacket and ran towards the station, clutching it under my arm.
Oh, hey.
After a few steps, Lola's father called out to me. Wondering what it could be, I turned around, and he was holding a shiny black stick.
You dropped your pen?
Thank you. It was my pen, the one I received as a commemoration of my job offer from Smith Corporation. It was black and had the company name engraved in gold. All right, see you. I took the pen and stuffed it into my bag before resuming my run. Should I have at least mentioned my name? By the time I arrived at the venue of the ceremony, it was already over. Oh my God! As I wandered, feeling dejected, I came across a luxury car in the parking lot. The car stopped right in front of me, and the driver's side window rolled down.
Oh, it's you.
The driver said, looking puzzled. Wasn't this person the HR manager, Liam? I remembered meeting him during the interview. Sorry, I'm Carl Newman, the new employee. I got delayed for some reason and just arrived for the ceremony.
I see. I wonder what's up.
Liam seemed gentler than during the interview. He seemed to be considering my absence from the ceremony.
It's okay.
Suddenly, a voice came from the back seat, and the rear windows started rolling down.
It's Carl, right?
I was surprised. Sitting in the back was Mr. David Abbott, the president of Smith Corporation. Ever since I became fascinated with Smith Corporation's products, I had thoroughly studied their website and brochures, so I remembered his face and name well.
We've already dismissed for today. Remember, we start work at 8 o'clock tomorrow, so be there on time.
Yes, understood. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. I apologized to President David, but halfway through, I heard the sound of the window closing. Naturally, it seemed I had upset him.
Liam, let the car go.
But shouldn't we hear his side of the story?
I don't have time. I'm busy. Get the car off.
I overheard a conversation between the president and Liam. Liam reluctantly nodded to me and closed the window. I returned the gesture with a bow of gratitude. Eventually, the luxury car drove away onto the road. Liam seemed a bit down. For a moment, I wondered, but given my situation, it wasn't the time to worry about others. It was more like despair or emptiness. Anyway, I was terribly worried about everything after tomorrow. The next day, after the morning meeting at the office, instructions were given to the new employees.
You'll start by studying our products. Here are some magazines about our products. Please take one each.
After reading the articles in the magazine, we were to summarize what we learned and our impressions in a report. That was the first task for all new employees.
After you finish, bring it to my desk. Once I approve it, feel free to read other articles in the morning.
Everyone seemed to be struggling, but it was an easy task for me. I already knew about this company's products, so it was simple. I could probably write the report even without reading the articles. But just in case there were any new discoveries, I decided to skim through the articles. While I was working, I heard shouting coming from the back of the office. I instinctively turned my gaze in that direction.
What on earth are you doing?
The one yelling was Liam, the head of the HR department. He was sitting in his chair, scolding 3 young female employees. He had such a fierce expression on his face that he looked completely different from the person I saw yesterday. Those who were yelled at were teary-eyed and apologized several times. I suddenly remembered Lola, the beautiful girl of yesterday. She also apologized with watery eyes, but I felt it was different.
Submit your countermeasures by the end of the day. Got it?
Yes.
All 3 of them replied, their voices trembling. Liam gestured for them to leave, and they dispersed. At the same time, a colleague sitting next to me nudged me with his elbow. Turning to him, he whispered,
"Isn't that the person we met at the interview?"
"Yay, that's Liam."
"Yeah, Liam. He's so scary, isn't he?"
"Yeah, he is."
"I can't stand it."
With just that, he went back to reading the magazine. I glanced discreetly at Liam. You had his head in his hands with his elbows on the desk. It was when I had finished writing the report and was about to submit it. Suddenly, the office door banged open and President appeared. Everyone, led by the senior employees, stood up.
Oh, it's you, Carl. Come here for a moment.
Yes, I was guided to the president's office. The office had a luxurious decoration, and the reception set looked comfortable to sit on.
You know why you were called, right?
The president sat on the desk, crossing his legs and arms, and spoke to me. I knew the reason for the summons. It had been bothering me, and that's why I had trouble falling asleep yesterday. It's about yesterday, missing the ceremony without permission.
That's right.
I'm really sorry. I sincerely apologized. How did the president take my apology? I couldn't see his face.
So, let's start by hearing your explanation. It surely wasn't just oversleeping, right?
I hesitated for a moment. The reason for my absence was like something out of a comics, but I couldn't lie about it. I decided to be honest. With that in mind, I began my explanation after denying the oversleeping theory. I was helping someone.
Someone?
Yes, a girl who seemed to be in danger of being abducted. I encountered the scene in an alley near the venue and helped her, escorting her home. As I spoke, the president looked at me with a straight face, arms crossed. After a while, his face began to crumble. Then, unable to contain himself, he burst into laughter.
You're saying you missed it because you were rescuing a kidnapped girl?
Yes.
Oh man, that's funny. I haven't laughed this much in a while.
Needless to say, his laughter likely contained a mocking intent. After a good laugh, the president returned to a serious expression, but perhaps it was a memory-induced laughter, as his lips soon curled up again.
Are you going to get away with such a ridiculous lie? How long are you going to stay in that student mindset?
It's not a lie. Perhaps I should have reported it, but isn't it awful to be called a liar without verifying the truth? I pleaded multiple times that it was true, but he wouldn't listen.
Can someone like you, who would choose a girl over the company, really handle being a professional? We don't need trash like you. You're fired.
For a few seconds, I couldn't understand the president's words. When I finally realized, my body shook and cold sweat broke out. Fired. But why?
I told you we don't need you. A liar like you would only hold everyone back at work. Now, get out.
My vision blurred. I had finally achieved my dream of joining Smith Corporation, only to lose it like this. It couldn't be helped. It was the consequence of meddling and sticking my nose where it didn't belong. I resigned myself to it and accepted the dismissal with a yes, understood. It happened right at that moment. Bam! The door to the president's office suddenly burst open.
Excuse me.
It was Liam, looking quite flustered. Sweat beaded on his forehead. It seemed serious.
What's the matter, Liam?
The president seemed irritated by the abrupt visitor, but Liam still wasn't calm. Could you please take a look at this news?
The news?
The president reluctantly turned on the television. The unnecessarily large screen came to life, displaying a news program.
Burt Company's daughter.
The president murmured weakly upon hearing the report. It seemed that Burt Company's daughter had been missing since the day before yesterday. Burt Company was quite a big company. Anyone somewhat knowledgeable would know it's quite famous.
Liam, get in touch immediately.
Finally understanding the situation, the president was now in a panic, just like Liam. This was because Burt Company was an extremely important business partner for Smith Corporation. Currently, due to quality considerations, a certain material was being purchased exclusively from Burt Company. In other words, if something happened to Burt Company, it would be bad for Smith Corporation.
Here's a breaking news update.
As the voice came from the TV, the three of them stared at the screen. It seemed that the missing daughter of Burt Company had been safely rescued yesterday, as revealed in interviews with those involved.
She's been rescued. Oh man, this kind of stress is not good for me.
That's right.
Both the president and Liam nodded in agreement, visibly relieved. They must have felt a huge sense of relief.
Oh, Carl, you're still here. I told you, you're fired. Go on, get out.
What?
Liam exclaimed in surprise at the president's words. What was he so surprised about? Liam must have known that I skipped the induction ceremony. Thank you for everything. I gave a formal farewell and left the president's office dejectedly.
You're fired.
As we passed each other, Liam muttered, his expression twisted in what seemed like bitterness. Just as I left the president's office, a woman from the office hurried over. She seemed to have something urgent to tell the president.
Excuse me, there's a visitor.
A visitor? I didn't hear about this. Who is it?
Yes, it's Mr. Percy Randall from Burt Company.
I was surprised. It was Percy Randall, the president of Burt Company. I knew his name from the news earlier. It seemed like incredible timing, but it had nothing to do with me. While my colleagues were finishing up their reports, I packed up my things. The guy next to me asked what was wrong, but I didn't feel like explaining. I just smiled and said there were some personal issues. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the president's voice from the hallway.
Is this someone from my company?
Following that, I recognized a familiar voice.
Yes, absolutely. It's someone from your company.
As I looked toward the source of the voice, the office door slammed open again. There stood the president and a well-built man with a beard by his side. Suddenly, our eyes met.
Oh, it's him. The one carrying that bag.
As soon as he said that, it all came back to me. The man from the luxurious mansion I met yesterday. In other words, Lola's father.
Oh, really?
The president was taken aback, his words faltering dramatically. I was just as bewildered by the situation.
Yes, I'd like to have a word with him.
All right, Carl, come here.
Invited by President, I was led to the reception room next to the office. Upon closer inspection, it seemed that Lola's father was indeed Percy Randall, the president of Burt Company. In other words, the missing young lady mentioned in the news was Lola, and I had unwittingly gotten involved in her disappearance.
I heard from my daughter. Carl, you were very brave.
No, it's not. My heart was racing. What have I done? Even though I didn't know, I ended up being a party to such a newsworthy event with just one impulsive act. I wasn't regretting it, but I was simply bewildered. They couldn't discuss the details of the case as it was under investigation, but Lola had apparently been kidnapped, presumably for ransom. I stumbled upon that situation, and that's how we got here.
Looking forward to your future endeavors, Carl.
With those words, Percy let out a hearty laugh. Our president chimed in, laughing exaggeratedly as well. But how did he figure out I'm with Smith Corporation? Right after thinking that, I remembered dropping the commemorative pen in front of the mansion. He must have seen the engraved company name.
If there are people like him, Carl, I'd like to build a good relationship with your company.
Percy said with a smile as he shook hands with David. Our president once again laughed artificially. But I'm fired. I hesitated about whether to speak up, but since I'm getting fired anyway, there's no need to show respect to the president. All right, let's just say it. I'm sorry, but I'll be resigning today. I just spoke with President.
You're resigning.
Percy exclaimed loudly, his eyes widening in shock. He looked quite taken aback. I felt a twinge of guilt in my heart.
Carl, calm down. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously.
President tried to cover up his panic with a clumsy excuse, but I didn't listen to him. I'm sorry, but I'll excuse myself here. I'm just a loser who chooses a girl over the company. Quoting President words, I stood up. He tried to grab my hand to stop me, but he seemed to just miss it.
Carl.
I was called back by Percy. Turning around, he gestured with both palms towards me, implying that I should wait.
David, what did Carl just say?
Well, you see.
President seemed bewildered and unable to say anything. Since there was no other choice, I explained the situation in his place. Yesterday was my company's ceremony, and I was helping Lola and I couldn't make it. I was told that the scum who chose the girl over the company was fired. As the conversation progressed, Percy's face turned red with anger.
David, you.
I apologize. I never imagined his story could be true and that the girl in question was your daughter.
David was bowing deeply to Percy. However, Percy's anger couldn't be contained.
I'm not saying this because she's my daughter. I can't believe you're such a heartless person. A previous conversation is retracted. I'll have to reconsider our future transactions.
For Burt Company, losing a small deal with Smith Corporation wouldn't make much difference. But for Smith Corp, losing the deal with Burt Company would be the end of everything. Knowing this, David tried to cling to Percy, but he was completely ignored.
Carl, it's a bit late, but this is how I am.
With that said, he handed me a business card. Percy Randall, CEO of Burt Company. It's quite something to receive such an impressive business card on my second day as a working adult. I'm sorry, I'm a new employee and I don't have a business card yet.
I see. Can you tell me your phone number? I'd like to thank you properly another day.
Of course. Thinking it would be rude to refuse, I gave him my cell phone number. Well then, I'll take my leave now, since I'm fired.
I'll leave now, too.
The two of us left the meeting room.
Oh, no.
David reached out his hand towards us while still seated, but both I and Percy just gave him cold stares. Without saying anything, we didn't extend our hands either. President was crying uncontrollably, wetting the floor with tears, looking incredibly pathetic. In the hallway, I passed by Liam. He looked at me with a sad expression and gave a slight nod. He's been acting strangely since yesterday. Returning his nod, I left the company. A few days later, while lounging at home, my phone rang. It was the CEO, Percy Randall. Hello, this is Carl.
It's Percy. Thank you for the other day.
After some small talk, we got to the main topic. Is it at your house?
I thought we could have a meal together. My daughter also wants to properly thank you.
I was surprised by the unexpected invitation. I recall the mansion I saw that day. The mansion in my memory may be somewhat embellished, but I feel nervous at the thought of going back there again. Understood. I'll come.
Yes, we'll be waiting for you.
It felt a bit awkward being told it was just a thank you, but I decided to respect their feelings and pay them a visit. I arrived at the Randall. Upon closer inspection, it was still a stunningly grand mansion. Pressing the intercom and stating my name, a maid-like figure came to greet me. Although I didn't feel particularly out of place, upon further reflection, the fact that they had hired help highlighted the disparity between our lifestyles. The hallway was adorned with numerous decorations, almost resembling an art gallery. As I followed the maid down the hallway, Percy's figure came into view.
Oh, we've been waiting for you.
Thank you for inviting me today. Once ushered into the living room, the luxurious interior beyond the hallway caught my eye. Having likened the hallway to an art gallery, I struggled to find the right words to describe the living room.
Hello, Carl.
Hello, Lola. Emerging from the depths of the room, Lola appeared in a stunning dress. Though not shining, she exuded a radiant glow. She was extremely glamorous and beautiful, and I couldn't help but feel my face flush as I recalled holding her hand earlier. We enjoyed a sumptuous lunch together. The food was incredibly delicious, but as a commoner, I didn't even recognize half of what was served.
On another note, Carl.
Yes.
What do you think about my daughter?
Well, what do you mean?
I'm thinking of having you as my son-in-law, you know.
I see, a son-in-law. Am I his son-in-law?
Wait a minute, Dad.
Well, it's an incredibly happy occasion, no doubt about it. But this is the first time in my 22 years of life I've been faced with such a situation, so all I could do was laugh. I couldn't react in any other way. Still as timid as ever, huh, me?
Well, think about it.
Okay. Definitely thinking positively. Adding that silently, my face flushed once again. Is it my imagination, or does Lola seem to be blushing? We stayed until dusk, and it was time to leave. Realizing I couldn't avoid the rush hour trains, I felt a bit down as I headed towards the gate, but then I noticed an expensive-looking car parked there.
Well, hop in, Carl.
This is... Apparently, they have a chauffeur, and they're offering to drive me home. It's like a dream come true, so I graciously accepted their offer. Well, thanks for everything.
No problem. Come again soon. Lola's looking forward to it.
As Percy said that, Lola, who was standing beside him, waved gently and smiled. Some days later, I received a call from Smith Corporation. Reluctantly, I agreed to answer it. Hello.
Hello, this is Liam from Smith Corporation.
When I asked what it was about, he said he wanted to talk directly and asked me to come to the company tomorrow. Honestly, I didn't want to go. While I think their products are great, as long as there's someone like David as the president, I have no desire to join the organization's ranks. I'll decline. I've been fired.
I'd like to ask you to reconsider. This isn't a request influenced by him.
It's unrelated to David's wishes. It's a personal request from Liam. I declined several times, but I was persuaded with insistence, so I reluctantly agreed to go. I don't hold any grudges against Liam. The next day, I arrived at the office at 8 a.m. to attend the morning meeting. It felt like my former colleague's eyes were piercing into me.
Next, we have Liam from HR.
Yes.
Liam took the stage. I suddenly noticed that I couldn't see President. He usually sits near the stage, with his arms and legs crossed.
Out of the blue, I must apologize to everyone.
Suddenly, he said that, remove the microphone from the stand. And then,
I'm truly sorry.
He suddenly apologized deeply. It was such an abrupt event that I couldn't grasp what was happening. Many employees seemed confused and started to murmur. When I looked up, Liam was explaining the situation.
I have behaved terribly toward all of you.
I found it surprising. He's always been so gentle and humble. I thought he was a kind person. That's why it felt strange to see him shouting in the office.
I have shouted at people. I have kicked desks and chairs, and I have used foul language. No matter how much I apologize, I cannot bear the shame.
Apparently, he had been manipulated by David like a puppet. Liam knew that such a leadership style was wrong. However, when it became apparent that he wasn't following the president's orders, he was unavoidably subjected to pay cuts. He was also subjected to what was almost like surveillance.
I also have a family, a wife and children, to support our livelihood. I had no choice but to obey his orders.
To avoid further pay cuts, he had to keep quiet, Liam tearfully explained.
I'm truly sorry.
He apologized again at the end of his speech. As expected, Liam seems to be a genuinely good person. The frustrated face I saw on the day of the ceremony. The next day, I saw him clutching his head, looking like he had swallowed a bitter pill. The sorrowful expression he wore when he bowed in the hallway. All of those must have been expressions of Liam's true feelings. He was following David's orders, but his conscience couldn't help but surface, I thought, watching him apologize with such impeccable form. After the morning meeting, Liam and the company executives personally informed me of the retraction of my dismissal. In particular, it seems that Liam, who recommended me for the job during our third interview, really wanted me to be hired. By the way, where is David? He didn't seem to be here since this morning. Returning to Smith Corporation would be fine, but honestly, I was thinking of declining if that person was still there.
Oh, that's not a problem. Well, I mean, it is a problem, but...
Apparently, on the same day I was fired, something unfortunate also happened to David. There was an internal whistleblower, and it was revealed that David had been embezzling company funds for personal use. He was arrested recently and voluntarily stepped down from the presidency. Now, it seems that another executive is serving as the president.
With a fresh start, we want to steer the company in a positive direction. I hope you'll cooperate with us.
Since he's not there anymore, I accepted the retraction of my dismissal. A fresh start. Suddenly, I recalled the determination I made on the morning of the ceremony. Several months later, in the evening, I visited Percy's house after work. I was invited for dinner. We meet like this once a week. That's because over the past few months, Lola and I have officially become a couple. I really appreciate that you'll continue doing business with our company.
It would be hard to abandon the company where Carl is, wouldn't it?
While chatting like that, we sat around the dining table with her dad, mom, and their daughter. Honestly, I'd prefer a dinner alone with Lola, but Lol is still afraid to go out, and to be honest, I'm not confident I could find a restaurant that would satisfy Miss Lola. After dinner, I spent some time talking with Lola in her room. She's so delicate, and it's hard to believe she chose someone like me as her boyfriend. On the way home, they offered me a ride again. As I waved to the three of them, the car started moving. I gazed at the starry sky through the window. Since becoming a working adult, have I been able to change? At least I think I've made progress, enough to have a girlfriend. Back then, I made the choice not to run away and to help her. That's why we have this connection now. Former President David lost everything because he indulged in greed and embezzled money. It's karma, isn't it? That's a really good idiom. I was impressed by that. To ensure I don't lose what I've finally obtained, I vow to continue making good choices in the future. And so, I swear to the starry sky,